Busch Gardens Williamsburg has really been on a roll. Over the past decade, they have installed a total of 5 new roller coasters. Their latest addition, Big Bad Wolf: The Wolf's Revenge, pays homage to the park's original Big Bad Wolf, continuing along with the story that began with the defunct coaster. Busch Gardens has 11 roller coasters in operation, many which are highly regarded in the coaster community. I like to update my ranking whenever a park introduces a new roller coaster, and the way that Busch Gardens Williamsburg has been trending, I just might be pushing out one of these videos every year. Before we get to my ranking, please do me a favor by clicking on that like button. Newcomers to my channel that love everything roller coasters and theme parks, be sure to follow. For those who are new to my ranking videos, besides just listing how they stack, I also implement categories. These categories are dumpster fire. This is for roller coasters that ultimately belong in the trash. Next up is kiddie coaster. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Middle of the road, which as the name implies, roller coasters that are right down the middle. Good coasters are where the majority of roller coasters should land. Solid additions that serve as excellent side dishes for the headlining attractions. Which leads me to the final category, elite coasters. This final category is reserved for the best of the best. Alright, to the list. We are going to skip over the dumpster fire category as I don't believe Busch Gardens Williamsburg has a roller coaster that belongs in this bucket, so let's move on into the kiddie coasters. Number 11. Grover's Alpine Express, opened in 2009. This is an above-average kiddie coaster, not exactly tame to allow all ages, but definitely something that belongs in this category. The ride is basically comprised of 2 helixes, the first one which is more intense side for a kiddie coaster, something to take note for your younger ones. Moving along to our next category, middle of the road. Number 10, Loch Ness Monster, opened in 1978. I have to add a disclaimer, I have not experienced this roller coaster since its major rehab that took place in 2024. I hear the ride is operating much better. It still has some of the same headbanging and jankiness from before, but a couple of the worst sections have been replaced and improved on. The theming received a nice upgrade to ensure that the classic aero looping coaster is here to last. As for the ride, if you remove your nostalgia goggles, I think you will see that this roller coaster is a step up for most aero looping coasters, but still nothing worth writing home about. Number 9, Invader, opened in 2017. I did debate if Invader belonged amongst the good coasters or not. In the end though, I think it's obvious that it's basically your run-of-the-mill wooden coaster. Sure, it has some nice pops of airtime, but it's nothing overly crazy, a simple layout that wraps up in well under 1 minute post lift hill. This ride serves as a nice family coaster, a good transition between their kiddie coaster to hitting up some of their larger, more aggressive attractions. Number 8, Dark Coaster, opened in 2023. Another decent family coaster, this time indoors. Dark Coaster is a multi-launching straddle coaster that features 4 launches, again all indoors. The theming is actually quite nice, lots of lights and effects happening inside the pitch dark. The roller coaster itself is geared towards the whole family, but the theming and presentation might be a little much for some of the younger ones. I have yet to convince my children to ride. Even though Dark Coaster operates with 2 trains, they only have the capacity of 10 riders, so expect long wait times. I recommend heading to this ride first thing when visiting Busch Gardens. Similar to Invader, I was debating if this also belonged in the good coasters, but overall, just based on the coaster experience, it's a fine roller coaster, but again, nothing that's really stand out. Again, I do like the theming, but yeah, it's still kind of the middle of the road package. Alright, moving along into the good coaster category. Number 7, Verbolten, opened in 2012. Even though the Big Bad Wolf: The Wolf's Revenge continues the legacy of the original, Verbolten is situated over top where Big Bad Wolf once stood. The second half of the ride uses some of the same footers that once supported the original. So, Busch Gardens Williamsburg now has 2 roller coasters that pay respect to their fallen comrade. Verbolten is another multi-launching roller coaster that is comprised of 2 parts. The indoor portion is the showpiece of the ride, utilizing a special track feature what was groundbreaking for its time to wow its riders. Even though some consider this to be a family coaster, I would argue that statement does a disservice to this ride. Verbolten has a few pretty intense moments, including the helix indoors that is sure to make me gray out. The launches also pack a punch, especially the second one as you blast out of the building. Unfortunately, the second half after the broken bridge is starting to show its age. The coaster is starting to get a little rough, thus knocking this coaster down in my rankings by a couple notches. Number 6, Tempesto, opened in 2015. Even though it's a fun roller coaster, I would continue to argue that this roller coaster has no place being here at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. The Skyrocket 2 model by Premier Rides is really meant for smaller parks that don't need a high output of riders. Busch Gardens is a very popular tourist destination, so putting in this decent yet filler attraction seems a little out of touch. If you head to this ride earlier in the day, you might be able to beat the crowds, but be warned, the lines can get rather long and slow moving. So if you miss out first thing, check out Tempesto prior to closing for shorter lines. For those who haven't been on a Skyrocket 2 model clone, this is yet another multi-launching roller coaster in the park. Tempesto is a shuttle coaster that utilizes a swing launch to get you up to the coaster's max speed. The ride has a couple decent pops of ejector airtime and a cool slow-moving barrel roll at the highest point of the ride. Number 5, Big Bad Wolf, The Wolf's Revenge, opened in 2025. When I saw that Busch Gardens Williamsburg was going to open a family inverted roller coaster, I was nervous. I heard the complaints about Phoenix Rising, a sister coaster to Big Bad Wolf located at Busch Gardens, Tampa. That coaster only utilizes one train, and even though it's not really bothersome, it has a rattle that shouldn't exist on a brand new attraction. Well, Big Bad Wolf, The Wolf's Revenge basically learned from what went wrong with Phoenix Rising and improved on that version. Big Bad Wolf has 2 trains, which dramatically improves the ride's overall capacity. Next, I'm not sure what made the difference, but I found Big Bad Wolf, The Wolf's Revenge to be glossy smooth. The layout is a lot more exciting, adding an additional lift and 800 feet of track. The ride even learned from previous attractions like Pantheon by upping the theming. Big Bad Wolf has a ton of theming and interactions throughout the ride, really pulling you into the story of this infamous wolf. The trains, ambience, all come together and make one great family inverted roller coaster. The ride is tucked all the way in the back corner of the park, and I hear it makes for one great night ride. Number 4, Apollo's Chariot, opened in 1999. The original hypercoaster by B&M. Even though it continues to be a solid roller coaster, I continue moving it back and ranking every year. There was a point when I could easily place this ride at number 1. Now the competition has gotten even more fierce. Apollo's Chariot follows a simple out and back layout that's littered with excellent floater airtime. The ride uses the terrain, allowing it to pull off a 210-foot drop, even though its maximum height is 170 feet. Being over 25 years old, the coaster is starting to show its age somewhat. There can be a rattle that pops up now and again, mostly during the helix at the midpoint of the ride. I think B&M has simply perfected their hypercoaster layout since the opening of Apollo's Chariot, which might be the reason for my cooling down opinion. In the end, this is still a standout ride with its big trains. This ride can handle a heavy output, almost ensuring multiple riders during every visit. Number 3, Griffon, opened in 2007. To this day, I consider Griffon to be one of the best dive coasters on the planet. The ride did the formula so well, delivering an excellent first drop on a butter-smooth track. Some of the newer dive coasters like Iron Menace or even Valraven to an extent can get a rattle, but Griffon continues to be glossy smooth after almost 20 years of operation. The first drop is, of course, the standout moment of the ride. The view at the top is breathtaking, allowing you to soak in the beautiful area that is Williamsburg, Virginia. The remaining elements are still fun, including the giant Immelmans and the second near vertical drop. Even though not an exciting moment on the ride, I still love watching the splashdown that happens near the end of the ride. Number 2, Alpengeist, opened in 1997. This inverted roller coaster continues to creep up in ranking every year. It's almost like a fine wine, improving with age. A lot of my gripes I used to have with this ride have seemed to vanish. I used to think the ride was rough, now I have no complaints. Sure, that turn into the mid-course brake run is a little sharp, but it's just one moment that I know how to brace for. The layout is super intense, fun, and I love those snappy inversions near the end of the ride. Busch Gardens gave this roller coaster a much needed paint job a couple years back, and that has really added life into this roller coaster. My favorite place to ride Alpengeist is up in the front row, but if you're looking for a crazy out of control experience, head for the back. Okay, moving into our final category, the one and only truly elite coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Number 1, Pantheon, opened in 2022. Originally planned for 2020, but we all know how things turned out that year. Pantheon is not only the best coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, but one of the best coasters on the planet. Built by the legendary Intamin Amusement Rides, Pantheon is yet another multi-launching roller coaster, making a total of 4 in the park. From what I can gather, this is basically a record in its own. The ride starts off soft, with a small launch that leads into a zero-G winder. The coaster then flies through these small outer-banked airtime hills before heading into the star element of the ride, the swing launch. The coaster crosses through a switch track that allows the coaster to launch, roll back, launch again, this time backwards, stall out on an incredible vertical spike, and then launch forward once again with enough speed to finish the rest of the ride. This swing launch is intense, with crazy small pops of ejector airtime that feels like you are going to fly off the track. The ending is a slight step back from this moment, but that giant zero-G stall is yet another standout element on Pantheon. All in all, this is a slam dunk of a roller coaster. The only thing missing that would send this ride into the stratosphere would be the theming. As I mentioned earlier, how Big Bad Wolf learned from Pantheon is the lack of theming. The ride is basically built over an empty field. It does interact with the Rhine River after plummeting down the top hat element, but most of the ride is just open fields with no theming or scenery to interact with. Well, that's my ranking of every roller coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This park really has a solid list of coasters. I know that some might be mad that I bumped Apollo's Chariot, Alpengeist, and Griffin into the good coaster category, but that shouldn't detract from these rides. They are solid roller coasters that might change in ranking based on the day. Until next time, this is Extreme Thrills.